It's the Forever Knight-A-Thon Season 2. We're recapping and reviewing every single episode of Season 2 of the 1990s Canadian police procedural Forever Knight about a vampire detective taking a bite at a crime. Oh boy, Season 2, Episode 3, Stranger Than Fiction, opens on a vampire melodrama. But not the vampire melodrama we're used to. This is the imaginings of famous vampire erotica author Emily Weiss, a wholly original character who is not Anne Rice. She's in Toronto to promote her new book, The Denied, when she's attacked by a mysterious assailant who bites her on the neck. Could it be? No, it couldn't be. A vampire? Well, I'll tell you who is a goddamn vampo. It's Nick. He and Skanky are assigned as protection detail for Weiss, and they protest that because they're homicide detectives. They shouldn't be investigating this attempted homicide. All the while, Skanky poo-poos Emily's books, because who could possibly enjoy melodrama about vampires? You'd have to be a real doofus. So you know, obviously, he's going to get really into them, right? Like, you can tell that already. Like, that's the beat they're going for. You get that, right? I don't have to explain that. Nick stops by the Raven and asks Jeanette if maybe it was Lacroix who attacked Weiss. Because, like, yeah, fair dues, man. Like, if there's a vampire attacking people, you should just assume it's Lacroix, for real. Good call, Nick. Like, I've given Nick a lot of guff about just going to Jeanette every time there's a murder, but like, yeah, it was probably Lacroix, right? Jeanette figures it could have been any vampire, really, because all vampires hate Emily Weiss. You see, her prose is too realistic. It draws too much attention to vampires, but I mean, like, it was Lacroix. Come on. Weiss, not Rice, just making sure you're hearing it right, possesses an intuitive understanding of vampos, which real vampos don't like. They view her as essentially giving away their secrets, even though she is not privy to their secrets in any meaningful respect. She doesn't know vampires are real, so I guess she just guessed their secrets correctly. It's not clear what it is she's doing to piss off all the vampires. Has she figured out the mechanics of vampirism that they don't want to be made public? We don't really see that. It seems like her understanding is more based on how it feels to be a vampire, the inner conflicts and self-hatred vampires go through, how they view themselves and view humans, the loneliness of immortality, that kind of stuff. I guess the idea is that by making vampires more believable, she's making it so that people are less likely to dismiss them as silly. It just feels like a really strange thing to piss off the vampos. It seems like they shouldn't really care about that, in my opinion. Rather than flashbacks in this episode, each time a character reads her book, The Denied, we see an excerpt from the story acted out as the reader imagines it, and each one replaces characters in the story with people they know and view themselves as a point of view character, and the book seems to grab all of their attention and they see themselves reflected in it in different ways. Skanky gets to do a fun little sequence where he imitates Nigel Bennett, but in a Dracula cape, because Skanky has no imagination.
Think of me as your guardian angel. I have just granted you your darkest wish. Get out!
Thanks for the thumbnail, guys. Nick needs someone to protect Emily while he does some police stuff. And who better than Jeanette, the woman who expressed a strong desire to murder her but moments ago.
I think a member of our community might have tried to kill Emily Weiss tonight.
Really? How delicious. I know quite a few of us who would like to do that, myself included.
This is Jeanette. She'll be staying with you while I'm out.
I can think of no better protector than a person who is an active murderer and specifically wants to murder this person that you're trying to protect, and also has super strength and a biologically immutable drive to kill. Jeanette struggles not to gorble up Emily, but ultimately resists because, I don't know, Nick asked her to. Lacroix watches on like a creep from the roof and is like, "Good job, Jeanette. You figured out my plan. You didn't gorble this woman because we're going to get Nick to do it, right?" And Jeanette's like, "Yeah, sure, man, whatever, fine." You see, that's Lacroix's dastardly scheme in this one, to cajole Nick into gorbling Emily. And he fully expects Nick to do it. And I get why Lacroix wants that, because like that's his whole thing in the show. But like, I guess what confuses me is why he expects that Nick will want it. Because sure, he thinks it's like a vampire's nature to gorble, but Nick has successfully managed to avoid gorbling in the past, so it's unclear to me why Lacroix expects this situation to be any different. Nick and Emily fall in love, obviously, just as Nick and every woman he meets eventually do, but that, if anything, seems to me like it would disincentivize gorbling. To gorble is not a loving act. At a book signing, a crazed fan tries to attack Emily, so Nick and Skanky think they've found their man. only for the police to receive a threatening message from the real would-be killer, who it turns out is her assistant. He thinks he's a vampo and wants to bring Emily across, but Nick shows up just in time to talk him down. Nick reveals he's a real vampo and orders the fake vampo to stand down. Quick thinking, Nick. You managed to avoid bloodshed. Someone could have really gotten hurt, but it's that commitment to not killing anyone that's, okay, fuck. Okay, well, at least Emily's gonna be okay, right? Nah, Nick is suddenly really tempted to gorble her ass, and she is down to clown with the gorbling, but in the end, he does decide to do the right thing, and instead of doing something awful, like gorbling her, which she wanted to happen, what he does is something kind. He hypnotizes her so that she'll never write about vampires again. That's her job. You just took away her ability to make a living. It's framed around like she had this conversation with Nick about how her friend had committed suicide and that using the books was a way for her to help herself deal with that. So like Nick is like, oh, I'm freeing her from that pain. But like, no, you've taken away her creative outlet. You have definitely made the pain much worse. And then Lacroix pouts and walks away like, oh, you got lucky this time. Ooh, Nick, I'm gonna get you next time.
Lucky boy. Lucky girl.
And it's not clear to me why he doesn't just kill Emily right there. Like if Nick won't do it, why not just kill her yourself, dude? You love killing people. Nick and Natalie discuss the episode's events, and Natalie says that by loving Emily and making a sacrifice for her, Nick has become more human.
I almost destroyed her because of what I felt.
But you didn't. And what you did by not taking her for yourself is called sacrifice. A very human gesture.
Did he, though? Did he make a sacrifice for her? Was the sacrifice not killing her? That is the sacrifice he made for her? She loses her extremely lucrative book series. That's nothing. He abstains from gruesomely murdering her, and that's framed as heroic and sad. Like we should feel bad for him because of how romantic it is that he didn't kill this woman. As you might gather from my tone, this episode was a mess. It's like the writers got exactly as far as, what if Nick met an Anne Rice type lady, but obviously not Anne Rice, because then we'd get sued, so we'll call her something different. I think you could do something interesting with that premise, but they sure chose not to. They went for yet another really forced, will Nick give in to temptation storyline? And there was really nothing in the story to justify Nick suddenly feeling extra tempted. Even the romantic angle, that he wanted to gorble her to keep her around forever, yearning for something to possess, like we've seen Nick fall in love so many goddamn times already. Why would this one be the one that pushed him over the edge? This whole episode, every character is nonstop yapping about what vampires mean, what vampires represent, and Nick has zero reaction to any of it. It should bother him, I think, that people view a fictional character in his exact situation as romantic, that the book portrays vampirism as this beautiful romantic thing, just like he thought it would be before it took his life from him. There should be a conflict there. The whole premise works so much better if Emily's stories were presented as uncomplicatedly sexy, lurid power fantasies. If they were an idealized version of vampires which made them seem romantic and desirable, and exclusively romantic and desirable. If they dropped this angle about her understanding the self-loathing and loneliness that vampires have. The other vampires should love that. Romanticizing vampires makes it easier to draw in new victims, to convince mortals to do their bidding, to think of them as Byronic, complicated antiheroes. It makes them more alluring. It flatters them. But Nick should hate it. He should have to contend with his own self-loathing, manifested here as someone else romanticizing an idealized version of everything he hates about himself. The ending, in particular, where Emily begs Nick to turn her, would work better if she, as a character, seemed to fundamentally misunderstand the nature of vampirism. Instead, we're expected to believe she at once has this weirdly accurate view of vampirism, but nonetheless is completely willing to get gorbled and vamped at a moment's notice. She knows how burdensome and lonely this is, supposedly, and intuitively understands that. But she still wants it? Why? Seems like she shouldn't want that if she understands it. That would also be an angle for Lacroix. He could use the opportunity of this woman pining to be a vampire, of not understanding what she is asking for, to tempt Nick. Like, hey man, why not Gorble just this one person? She wants you to. You're not doing anything wrong. He could use the book to persuade Nick that all mortals secretly yearn for the same things Lacroix is trying to tempt him with. That desiring mortality is a contradiction, because deep down, the most mortal thing one can do is to desire being a vampire. It would also make more sense that so many people are led into delusionally attacking her, believing themselves to be vampires, if being a vampire were something her books portrayed as a straightforwardly desirable thing. It would create a theme about the nature of fantasy versus reality, and then this episode would have been about a thing, instead of what it is, which is about, what if Anne Rice were there? And the ending would work better too. I didn't even put this in the script, but the ending would work better too, where he has to like convince her not to write about it anymore, because in that version she's writing about like an unhealthy fixation on like a fantasy that she's having, and so it would make sense that she'd want it. Season 2 has been off to a slow start, but that all changes tomorrow when Nick, and I'm not joking, fights Jack the Ripper. Sorry, I don't know if let me just take that again. Tomorrow, Nick fights Jack the Ripper. So look forward to that, or just watch it right now on patreon.com/scaredycats. But yeah, so that's okay. I really am glad I'm done talking about this one, so I can go talk about that one now. I want to give a special thank you to my web puppets over on Patreon. We've got Wolfman Jack, Cooper Holmes, Joe McClory, Liz Widow, C.H. Phillips, Gideon, David Kaler, and Andrew Roger.
And I, Bobby Duke, the star of the channel, would like to thank these other people who's also the stars of the channel. We got Jay Torney, Connor Patrick Griffin, Rachel Ratt, Kato Moore, Carpad, Josh Manes, and Hyla Tracy. Hope you're enjoying this Forever Night shit that Mildo insists on doing every year. I don't really get it myself. I don't know. I'm trying to reduce my screen time. That's just me, though, you know? Like, who cares about some show from the 90s nobody's ever heard of?